Hello, world. Patricia O'Connor, and here you go, babe. Frida Reba Darcy here, and tonight on the Bonsai balcony, we're not doing a whole lot. In fact, we're not going to do anything we were going to do. I've already done. I just brought in, and we had a good day at work. I've got a couple of days off ahead of me. We're kicking back our dogs, not kicking our dogs. We're kicking back our dogs, and I brought in these 3 little mame Japanese black pines so that I could sit here and watch cartoons and then look at the trees, see if they needed anything, do anything to them that I thought they needed, and just generally have a look and see how they're doing. And this is a good time to do that for several reasons. We'll get into those as we go, and this isn't going to be a long video. This is just, we've been doing we've done a couple of long videos. My longest video was the last one, and I'm sorry about that. This is one of our little Japanese black pines that we got in an order, or in a group of 10 that we ordered. And we bought these trees and we bent and folded them. And then I was sent this beautiful pot by Elizabeth at Hinata Ceramics in England. And we put those 2 together. So tonight I brought it in. I was having a look at it, and it was looking really good. I mean, the needle size, I'm loving that. It's proportionate. It could be smaller. I think it could be a little smaller, but it's well on its way to doing, it's meeting us more than halfway. And you can see that the wires are starting to bite in a little. It looks like the trunk is starting to swell up. If you look at the bottom, I can't point to it because I'm holding the camera with one and holding the pot with the other. But if you look, you'll see a little copper wire that's bundled together at the bottom of the trunk down there. And it seems to be kind of clamping around the trunk in 3 places. That's because it's clamping around the trunk in 3 places and squeezing all of those together. It's also pulling the leader. The leader is the branch that is as long as all of that bundle is wide, with our top of the tree attached to the top. So this is what I'm saying. You can see it coming down at the bottom, and then I pulled it over close to the bundle with that loop. That loop right there pulls all of that in tight and then pulls the bundle together. So that's what's got our little apex right there at the top of all of our twists and curves. And I just love the way this little tree is turning out. It is, it's gorgeous already. And I think, some more branches and some bark would be great. But we've already got little branches coming out there in some really cool places. And we're not going to see for 10 years. And I don't know how, the idea here is to try to maintain these little trees as small, just to see how long we can unpot this thing, cut back the roots a little bit, and put it back in this same pot before the trunk gets so fat or something that it will no longer, that we're basically sticking a trunk in this cup then, instead of a pot with a little tuft of roots at the bottom. At that point, we'll have to give up the ghost and go a little bit bigger. But the idea is to see how fat and how long we can get this guy to stay tiny, tiny, tiny mame. It can stay within mame, and we can raise it on out. But the idea is how long can I keep it at, an inch or 2? That to me is the challenge. The other way to grow these tiny, like say for instance, if I wanted to grow, a table full of mame Japanese black pines, and say to have them be worth something or to be valuable, towards my retirement or something, we want our little Japanese black pine to have a trunk about that big around. It'd be that big around, but about that tall. So it'd be fat, and about that tall. So how would we do that? I would do that by taking seedlings and planting them with their, getting them going, and then taking their plugs and putting those in long tubes that I would make out of screen, and I would put the tubes full of substrate with the pine trees sticking out of the top and then I would wire those in the center of a colander, a cooking colander for a kitchen, right? Full of substrate. I would wire one of them on little wire tube screens, one of my screen tubes that I've just kind of folded up and then kind of put a bundle around it or a wire around to make it stay in a bundle shape. And then I fill it full of substrate. Now that's sitting in a colander. And as the roots grow down that tube and then fill up the colander, the roots in the tube will be the ones that later I will train. And the roots in the colander will be the ones that will actually be doing all the work to fatten up the tree and stuff. Over time, we'll get rid of the substrate, and we'll get rid of that tube, and all of those roots can be exposed and become wood, and they can be fanned out, or they can do something. There's like so many different things you can do with those roots, including make your tree taller or make your tree fatter. The other thing is you would then allow one candle to be a sacrifice branch and just let that son of a gun go for 4 or 5 years. So you've got this little tree in a little colander planted inside of a little tube with one sacrifice branch that's probably a foot or two long. And then at that point, your tree might be this big around. And that's when you cut off everything above the first branch, and then you've got a tree that big around with a huge wound on top, but then you've got the branches below that. And so you would putty that up and give that a year to heal. And then that is the way that you would typically watch somebody make a shohin bonsai black pine with a huge fat trunk. What we're trying to do here is to make smaller than that even. We're taking our seedlings and we're putting wire to them, and we're just seeing how long we can keep them small. Now, I do have some that I'm kind of doing the other two. I don't really have any huge candles hanging out of them, but I have overpotted them, and they're in terracotta pots, and I'm working the roots, and we're doing all of that. And yeah, I'll probably let a candle on those go next summer now that they're all settled into their thing. So it'll be interesting to see how this guy and this guy do under that. And to even a more extreme, this is the little wabi sabi pot. Wabi sabi. You see, it's got a little dent there. It feels really good in the finger. And there's another little dent there. Like somebody made this pot and then put it in their hand and then squeezed it and probably left their thumbprint in there. It wasn't me, but I love this little pot. Now this little bean, Japanese black pine, I gave it a look and I removed a couple of dead needles, and it's doing good. You can see the trunk is here in the foreground, like right here in the foreground, and it kind of runs along the ground a little bit before it lifts up into there. So I like what it's doing. The wire is just starting to bite in some places. It's a little too early to go taking that off yet. I don't want it to bite in much, but it's a little early to go taking that off yet. Otherwise, I'm pretty happy with this little guy. Its needles are long. Its needles are longer than the tree. So I've got a little work to do there, but that's not the worst. In fact, I would say it's cute. This is a cool little tree, and I'm pretty happy with it. And that's just, I don't have 8 years involved with this. This came in the end of last summer. 9 little anemic, unhealthy little pine trees from Florida. The second batch was 10 beautiful little pine trees from upstate, a couple of states from here. But I took these tiny ones, and a couple of them died, and a couple of them I was able to nurse back to health, but I didn't really take a lot of care of them. I just wired them and bended them, folded them, and watered them and fed them, and see if they were going to put up with the mail and the ill treatment in Florida and the ill treatment in the mail room and the ill treatment here. and then see if all of that and a little food and a little water, how that would do them. And 6 of them are doing fine and look really good. They were so much smaller than the healthier ones that they were easier to keep small this year. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to, but I'm going to try to do the same thing with this little bean size bonsai that I'm doing with the others. I'm just going to try to keep them, these 3 are examples of trees that started off super small, and I'm going to try to keep them super small. The other way to do that was kind of like what I was saying, is you let it grow big and then chop it down and then heal that chop. So it's still going to take 3 or 4 years. But then you've got a chop to heal that's probably, not much bigger around than, well, I'd say not much bigger around than my thumb. So you could probably do that in a year or 2. But that's the really nice things about these mames. We're not going to see bark before other pine trees see bark, so we're still talking about 10 years on that. But they sure are fun to bend, fun to fold, fun to get going, and it is really rewarding to see them respond well. It's something weird. Somebody was writing and responded in the columns section just to one of our videos just recently, how whenever they folded a pine tree, like I folded one of mine, that it responded by just turning out the buds and got greener and got fatter. And I would say that's what Frankenpine did for me. I folded that tree up pretty tight and then put zip ties and bundles of wire on my wraps and pulled those up even tighter, and then sat back with not seeing any tears. I just sat back in kind of awe that it didn't split or tear. And then I just sat back and wondered and watched to see how it would respond. And how it responded was lots of buds, lots of new growth, pushing out everywhere, and did some really pretty roots on its own. And I didn't even start working the roots, but those started kind of manifesting themselves on the top there. So that was pretty rewarding, and that was also encouragement to do more. And we have more of this coming up too. All of these trees are starting to be in a fallback position because I've bent them, I've folded them. They're in their little bonsai pot, so they've had their nutrients removed until fall. Now that's the other thing. I said they look about as good as they're going to look for the year. At some point in the next couple of weeks to months between now and fall, I would expect some of these trees to start yellowing some. That would be a result of not feeding them, because we're not going to feed them again until fall. Whenever the new round of leaves has grown out fully and all that spring growth is fully hardened off, and as long as it's going to get, and feeding them then won't mean that things just get longer on the tree like that, then that's when we pick up our feeding again. So between now and then they might get a little yellow, but right now they still look really rich colors, really nice rich color. The work that we've done is I think paying off. The shapes of these little trees is cool. The wire is doing what it's supposed to do. The little lines are doing what they're supposed to do. So far, I've been doing what I'm supposed to do, it feels like, and I've really been enjoying this. I would say I didn't expect to become a tiny tree enthusiast. I could, I kind of like the big trees too. Those are impressive, but so are these guys. And in a couple of years, they would be just as valuable as any other bonsai that you see that's larger. They're not worth less because they're tiny. They're highly prized and valued and stuff. Some of the more expensive trees I've seen were show-hens. So yeah, that's all I can do on this. I was just gonna take a minute to look and appreciate how these guys are looking and see if they needed anything. I did put a wire on this tree. I did cut back a couple of needles while I was just a couple of brown needles. You know, third year needles, not third year needles, but whatever the old needles that on there were a few of them. I pruned back some on this and this guy. This guy I didn't mess with a whole lot. It's just too tiny. And that's the wire that we put on there. And it's pulling this leader close to our bundle. And that's our money shot right there. That's our money shot. Like and subscribe if you guys haven't already. I've got 2 days off and I plan to shoot some videos during that time. I don't know right now what I'm going to get up to, but I bet it'll be bonsai. I bet it'll be fun. And I appreciate you, and Frida appreciates you. And thank you so much for watching.